As I stood on the balcony of my modest hotel room in Pattaya, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I could feel the thrill of adventure coursing through my veins. Thailand had been a dream come true, with its vibrant streets, delicious street food, and welcoming locals. I savored every moment, from the chaotic energy of the night markets to the serenity of the temples. But as I looked out over the sea, the horizon beyond Pattaya began to whisper to me, urging me to venture further. Jakarta and Bali were calling my name. The decision to travel to Indonesia felt almost impulsive, yet it resonated deep within me. I had read about Jakarta's blend of modernity and tradition, its bustling streets filled with the sounds of honking cars and cries of street vendors. The city was a mosaic of cultures, and I longed to immerse myself in its tapestry. I could already envision myself wandering through its colorful neighborhoods, tasting the mouth-watering street food, and exploring its rich history. But attending to my inner adventurous spirit came with a price. I battled my apprehensions about stepping into the unknown. The internal struggle was palpable. Could I navigate such a vast city? What if I got lost in the labyrinth of Jakarta's streets? I had read countless travel blogs and watched endless YouTube videos, each one depicting Jakarta as a chaotic dance of life, but I knew I had to push through the fear. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that the best memories often come from taking risks. I spent days preparing for the journey ahead, poring over maps and articles, making lists of must-see destinations. Top on my list was the National Monument, a towering symbol of Indonesia's independence that promised breathtaking views from its observation deck. I envisioned standing there, the city sprawling beneath me, a pulse of life in every direction. I also marked the old town of Batavia on my itinerary, with its Dutch colonial architecture and a history that stretched back centuries. I imagined sipping coffee at a quaint cafe, surrounded by both the past and the present. Jakarta was just a stepping stone, a vibrant prelude to my next stop, Bali. The thought of Bali conjured images of paradise, lush rice terraces, pristine beaches, and spiritual tranquility. I found myself daydreaming about Ubud's art scene, where local artisans infused tradition with modern creativity. I longed to visit the sacred Tagalalang Rice Terrace and be enveloped by its stunning vistas, a poet's dream come to life. I couldn't ignore the allure of the beach towns either. Kuta and Seminyak beckoned with promises of golden sands and turquoise waters. As the day of departure grew nearer, excitement bubbled within me, though it was tinged with anxiety. I had read stories about cultural clashes, unexpected customs, and the language barrier. Would I be able to communicate? How would I connect with the locals? Still, I reminded myself that the journey is often more important than the destination. Each challenge merely added to the tapestry of travel experiences that shaped who I was, an ever-evolving traveler, embracing adventure in its many forms. Finally, the day of my flight arrived, and as I boarded the plane, I felt a surge of gratitude. The excitement in the air was palpable, and I took solace in the knowledge that I had chosen this path. The flight to Jakarta was filled with anticipation. I stared out the window, envisioning my next few days. Would I find unexpected friendships, delicious foods, hidden gems waiting to be discovered? Landing in Jakarta was a whirlwind. The heat greeted me like an old friend, wrapping me in its warm embrace. After navigating through customs and grabbing my luggage, I stepped outside to the cacophony of the city. It was alive. Taxis zoomed by, street vendors called out their wares, and buses rumbled past. I felt exhilarated and a bit overwhelmed, but I pushed those feelings aside as I made my way to my hotel. My first stop was the National Monument. The journey through the streets of Jakarta was a sensory overload. Colorful billboards flashed above, street vendors expertly utilizing tiny carts to cook everything from satay to fried banana. The contrasts were striking. Modern skyscrapers pierced the sky beside humble shops, and luxurious malls stood proudly across from traditional markets. Upon reaching the monument, I stood in awe, absorbing its grandeur. As I climbed to the top, my heartbeat quickened with every step. Once at the observation deck, I was rewarded with a panoramic view of Jakarta, a bustling metropolis weaving between tradition and modernity, and I could feel the pulse of the city beneath my feet. I let out a sigh of contentment. This was what I had yearned for, this moment of clarity and excitement. Each day that followed was filled with discovery. I wandered through Kota Tua, Jakarta's old town, where history lingered in the air. The colonial buildings stood resilient, their beauty etched in time. I sipped coffee at Cafe Batavia, soaking in the ambience of this historic locale. The conversations around me came and went, filled with chatter and laughter. I felt a part of something bigger than myself. Street food became a daily adventure. Each bite was a revelation. I tried nasi goreng, oodles of fried rice dancing on my palate, and bakso, meatballs swimming in a spicy broth. The flavors were bold and vibrant, each dish telling a story of Indonesia's diverse culture. I chatted with local vendors, their smiles radiant as they explained the origins of their recipes. It was moments like these that ignited my passion for travel, those threads of connection woven through shared experiences, bridging cultures, and creating friendships. My time in Jakarta flew by, and soon I found myself on a flight to Bali. The plane soared above a sea of clouds, and I watched the landscape change as we descended into paradise. Bali was everything I had imagined, a serene oasis bursting with nature's beauty. The lush greenery unfolded before me as I arrived in Denpasar, and my heart raced with joy. I had planned a whirlwind of activities for my days in Bali, visiting iconic temples, soaking up the sun on pristine beaches, and exploring the vibrant art scene. My first destination was Ubud. As soon as I stepped foot in this artistic haven, I knew I had found something special. The air was thick with creativity. I meandered through gallery after gallery filled with breathtaking art, each piece intricately telling its own story. One of the highlights of my Ubud journey was the Tagalalang Rice Terrace. Standing there, with the emerald green fields sprawling out in front of me and the soft sounds of nature, I felt a profound peace wash over me. I wandered among the terraces, taking countless photographs, attempting to capture the beauty of this paradise. I joined a local tour group, and together we learned the intricacies of rice farming and Balinese culture from our knowledgeable guide. The days in Bali melted into evenings of sunsets and laughter. I found myself in Kuta, lying on the warm sands, the sun dipping into the ocean as surfers danced on the waves. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the sounds of music and laughter from beachside bars. I struck up conversations with fellow travelers, sharing stories of our adventures, our laughter echoing around us. Each night brought me deeper into the heart of Bali. I attended traditional dance performances, where the stories of ancient mythologies captivated my imagination. I felt honored to immerse myself in a culture so rich with tradition and spirituality. As my time in Bali dwindled, I realized how transformative this journey had been. I had faced my fears, navigated through cultural differences, and embraced the beauty of the unexpected. Each new experience, whether it was getting lost in Jakarta's maze of streets or savoring the serenity of a rice terrace in Bali, had been a key to unlocking a deeper understanding of the world and myself. Sitting in a cafe for one last meal in Bali, I pondered the incredible adventures I had embarked upon. The flavors of Indonesia would forever remain with me as a reminder of the vibrancy and variety life has to offer. I understood now that traveling is not just about the places you visit, but also about the moments you experience and the connections you make along the way. I had forged a bond with this extraordinary country, and as I prepared for the journey home, I knew I was not the same person who had left Pattaya. I returned enriched and inspired, ready to embrace whatever adventures awaited me next. Upon arriving in Jakarta, Indonesia, I was immediately enveloped in a cacophony of sounds and colors that were both exhilarating and overwhelming. The humid air wrapped around me like a warm blanket, a stark contrast to the cool, dry climate I had left behind. My heart raced as I stepped out of the airport, every instinct screaming for me to either retreat back to the safety of familiarity or dive headfirst into this unknown adventure. The moment I stepped into the hustle and bustle of the city, I felt a wave of emotions crash over me. Fear gripped my chest as I navigated through crowds of people, each person weaving past me with a purpose that I struggled to grasp. These first steps were shaky. My feet seemed to hesitate, unsure of where to tread in this sprawling urban jungle. The sounds of honking cars, the shouts of street vendors, and the chatter of locals created a rhythm that was both chaotic and captivating. It was a symphony of life, and I was a newcomer hoping to find my place within it. Yet, There was an undeniable feeling of euphoria bubbling within me. I was in Jakarta, a city that thrummed with energy, where every corner held the promise of discovery. My senses were on high alert. The aroma of street food wafted through the air, enticing me to try dishes I had only read about. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the scent of grilled skewers and spices, feeling a tantalizing pull toward the vibrant culinary scene that awaited me. As I walked through the streets, I couldn't shake the doubts that crept into my mind. Was I ready for this adventure? Was I prepared to face the challenges that lay ahead in a culture so different from my own? The unfamiliarity of the language and customs felt like a large wall standing between me and the experiences I wished to embrace. As I fumbled through my basic phrases, I could sense the looks of confusion from locals, making me feel small and out of place. But those doubts were soon overshadowed by pockets of inspiration that sparked within me. Every friendly smile from a stranger and every welcoming gesture strengthened my resolve to connect with this land and its people. One of the first places I visited was the iconic National Monument, standing tall amidst the cityscape. As I gazed up at its towering presence, I felt a surge of hope and determination. This did not just represent Indonesia, it symbolized resilience, history, and the spirit of a nation. I imagined the stories that had unfolded in the shadow of this monument, and suddenly, my fears felt inconsequential. I was just a small part of a much larger tapestry, one that stretched far beyond my own experiences. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I found myself at a local food market. The vibrant stalls were overflowing with colorful fruits and dishes that seemed to tell their own stories. I watched as locals haggled and laughed, their camaraderie infectious. My heart swelled with inspiration that evening. It dawned on me that each experience was a lesson waiting to be learned. I picked up a bowl of bakso, its warmth cradling my hands as steam spiraled into the air. I took my first bite and was immediately transported by the burst of flavors, a reminder that stepping outside my comfort zone was the gateway to unforgettable experiences. The mixture of emotions I felt during those early moments in Jakarta was a kaleidoscope of life. I could feel fear and uncertainty wrestling with joy and inspiration, each emotion intensifying the other. And as the cityscape transitioned from day to night, I recognized that these first steps, filled with a mosaic of feelings, were merely the beginning of a journey that would take me deeper into the heart of Indonesia. I was ready to embrace every challenge, every triumph, and every moment that would shape my experience in the days to come. My journey had just begun, and I couldn't wait to see where it would lead me next. As the night enveloped the city, filled with the sounds of laughter, music, and the sizzling of street food, I knew the adventure ahead would transform me in ways I could only begin to imagine. In that moment, with the city pulsing around me, I felt alive, ready to dive deeper into the beautiful chaos of Jakarta and beyond. As I stepped off the plane in Jakarta, Indonesia, a wave of warmth enveloped me, both from the tropical climate and the vibrant energy of the city. The air was thick with humidity and the unmistakable scent of street food wafted through the terminal, teasing my senses and making my stomach rumble in anticipation. I could already hear a symphony of sounds, the honking horns of the busy traffic, the chattering of people in a language that danced on the edge of my comprehension, and the distant melodies of traditional music that seemed to float from every corner. Navigating Jakarta was an adventure in itself. The crowded streets were alive with scooters zipping past, their drivers expertly weaving through the chaos. I found myself in a state of sensory overload, struggling to absorb the sights and sounds while trying to keep my bearings. The vibrant colors of the markets with their rich array of fruits and spices caught my eye, each stall seemingly shouting for attention. I could hardly believe my eyes as I encountered exotic fruits with names I couldn't pronounce, their vibrant colors almost too bright to be true. Meeting new people was both thrilling and daunting. Many locals smiled warmly, their faces lighting up as I attempted to engage in broken conversations. Although the language barrier posed a significant challenge, gestures and smiles became my universal tools for communication. I remember one evening when I found myself at a street food stall. A jovial vendor, noticing my hesitation, started preparing a plate of nasi goreng. He didn't speak much English, but his laughter and hand movements conveyed a welcoming spirit. Taking my first bite, the explosion of flavors sent my taste buds on a wild ride. The spicy, savory rice mixed with tender morsels of chicken and fresh vegetables was unlike anything I had ever tasted. As days passed in Jakarta, I immersed myself in the local culture. I learned to navigate the bustling markets, where barter was an art form I was eager to master. Vendors shouted prices, while customers haggled with a mixture of shyness and boldness. I'd often find myself trailing behind other shoppers, observing their effortless exchanges, until I finally gathered the courage to try it myself. Each small victory felt monumental, igniting a sense of accomplishment and confidence within me. However, the journey was not without its challenges. Some evenings, a wave of loneliness would wash over me as I wandered through the throngs of people, feeling like a lone island in a sea of faces. The vibrant nightlife was indeed fascinating, but at times, it accentuated my isolation. I would sit in crowded cafes, sipping sweet kopi and watching families and friends gather, sharing laughter and stories in a language I couldn't comprehend. It made me long for familiar connections, people who knew my thoughts without the need for translation. But with every passing week, I learned to embrace the unfamiliarity. Each moment was an opportunity for growth. I found solace in small interactions, a kind smile from a stranger, the laughter of children playing in the streets, the sweet music of gamelan echoing from a nearby temple. I began to appreciate the rhythm of everyday life here, how time seemed to flow differently, slower yet richer, allowing for small moments of connection. As I transitioned to Bali, the change in atmosphere was palpable. Denpasar welcomed me with open arms, its laid-back vibes distinct from the intensity of Jakarta. The air was sweet with the scent of frangipani blooms and incense from local temples, mingling with the salty breeze from the nearby ocean. The beaches were dotted with surfers riding the waves. Their shouts of joy echoed in the air. I found myself drawn to the coastline, where I spent hours watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange, purple, and pink. In Bali, the friendliness of the locals was infectious. I joined cooking classes to learn about Balinese cuisine, eagerly diving into the vibrant world of spices and fresh ingredients. The first time I helped prepare babi guling, the flavors were a revelation. The rich, savory pork mixed with spices engulfed my senses, and by the end of class, we were a group laughing and sharing stories, each one bridging the gap of language with food and experience. I took part in local ceremonies, watching elders drape their ornate sarongs and offer prayers in serene tones. Despite the initial shyness that often gripped me, I found myself participating, my heart swelling with a sense of belonging. Each ceremony felt like an invitation into a world that was steeped in history and belief, where spirituality lingered in the air, bathing the community in a shared sense of peace. Deep inside, I found a quiet strength blooming. Each day became a gentle reminder that stepping out of my comfort zone brought about new opportunities to learn and grow. I learned to navigate the intricacies of local customs, from the heroics of riding a scooter through winding roads to understanding the etiquette of how to respectfully decline an offer of food. Eventually, the vibrant sights and sounds of Indonesia became a part of my daily narrative. I found joy in the little things, in mastering the art of bargaining, in sharing a meal with new friends, or simply in the fleeting moments of connection that turned strangers into companions. Every interaction seemed to peel away layers of fear and hesitation, revealing an adventurous spirit that I had unknowingly harbored within me. The experience transformed me. I came to understand that these new challenges, the language barrier, the cultural differences, the feelings of loneliness, were not hindrances, but stepping stones. Each was an integral part of the tapestry of travel. I left Indonesia not only with memories of stunning landscapes and delicious meals, but with a newfound bravery that whispered, "You can do this." As my plane descended towards Soekarno-Hatta International Airport in Jakarta, a palpable sense of excitement filled the air. I had read about Indonesia's vibrant culture and stunning landscapes, but I was eager to witness them firsthand. Jakarta, the bustling capital, is a city that effortlessly blends the old with the new. The drive from the airport to the city center was an experience in itself. Motorbikes darting through traffic, street vendors offering a tantalizing array of snacks, and the occasional glimmer of a skyscraper visible beyond the chaos. One of my first stops was the National Monument, or Monas, soaring 132 meters into the sky. Standing in the large square beneath it, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride for Indonesia's rich history. The monument, adorned with a golden flame at its peak, commemorates the struggle for independence. As I took the elevator to the observation deck, I was rewarded with a breathtaking panoramic view of Jakarta, an unforgettable sight of the city's sprawling architecture amidst the greenery. Shortly after, I ventured into the old town area of Kota Tua. Walking through the cobblestone streets, I felt transported back in time. The beautifully preserved colonial buildings, such as the Fatahillah Museum, told stories of the Dutch colonial era. I paused at Café Batavia, a historic establishment, indulging in some traditional Indonesian dishes while soaking in the atmosphere. The cafe's vintage decor, with its high ceilings and antique furniture, offered a stark contrast to the modern hustle outside. I found myself wandering into an unexpected gem, the Wayang Museum, dedicated to the art of Indonesian shadow puppetry. As I looked at the intricate puppets and learned about their significance in Indonesian culture, I was struck by the skill and artistry involved in this ancient craft. It was a reminder of the deep cultural roots that run through Jakarta, often hidden from the average tourist's eyes. With my heart full of memories from Jakarta, I then made my way to Bali, specifically Denpasar, known for its unique blend of tradition and modern tourism. The moment I stepped off the plane, the warm, fragrant air infused with the aroma of incense enveloped me. My first visit was to the Bali Museum, where I marveled at the intricate Balinese artifacts, sculptures, and textiles that narrated the island's history. Not far from the museum, I explored the Pasar Badung market, a sensory overload of colors, sounds, and smells. Stalls lined with spices, fresh fruits, and local handicrafts drew my attention. I couldn't resist sampling some local delicacies like satay lilit, a ground fish satay wrapped around bamboo sticks, and the fiery sambal, which awakened my taste buds. The hustle and bustle of vendors bargaining and locals shopping added a dynamic energy to the experience. My journey continued to Sanur Beach, where the relaxed ambience was a welcome change from the hectic pace of Jakarta. The sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink as I strolled along the shoreline. Local fishermen cast their nets in the gentle waves, and I could hear families laughing and enjoying the calm evening. I found a cozy beachside cafe where I savored a bintang beer while watching the sunset, a perfect way to unwind. Curious to delve deeper into Balinese culture, I booked a trip to Ubud, known as the cultural heart of Bali. The scenic drive through lush rice paddies and dense jungles was mesmerizing. Upon arrival, I visited the Monkey Forest Sanctuary, home to playful long-tailed macaques. I watched as they swung from trees and interacted with visitors, always on the lookout for a snack. The ancient temples nestled within the forest were tranquil, offering a moment of reflection amidst the playful chaos of the monkeys. In Ubud, I stumbled upon a local art market, filled with handcrafted goods. As I browsed through intricate wood carvings and colorful textiles, I engaged with local artisans who shared their stories and creative processes. I left with several souvenirs, each carrying a piece of Balinese culture. One of the highlights of my trip was attending a traditional Balinese kikak dance performance at Uluwatu Temple, perched high on a cliff overlooking the ocean. I watched in awe as the dancers narrated stories through expressive movements and mesmerizing chants. The backdrop of the setting sun casting golden rays on the temple added drama to the performance, making it an unforgettable experience. Before my departure, I made a point to visit Tagalalang Rice Terraces, a must-see in Ubud. The emerald green fields cascading down the hills were a sight to behold. As I hiked through the terraces, I met local farmers who shared their knowledge of traditional irrigation methods, known as subak. The serene beauty of the landscape was a reminder of the harmony that exists between nature and Balinese traditions. Returning to Denpasar, I reflected on the myriad of experiences from Jakarta and Bali. Both locations offered a vibrant tapestry of culture, history, and natural beauty. While Jakarta's urban landscape pulsated with life, Bali provided a serene escape filled with deep-rooted traditions. Each site I visited left a lasting impression, enriching my understanding of Indonesia's diverse heritage and inspiring a deep appreciation for the warmth of its people. As I prepared to leave, I felt a sense of gratitude for the memories created, promising to return one day to explore even more of this enchanting country. The sun was rising over the sprawling city, casting a warm golden hue on everything it touched. I stepped out of my small apartment, feeling a blend of excitement and apprehension. Life in a new city was not easy, and I was determined to navigate every twist and turn that came my way. With a deep breath, I adjusted my backpack and set out to explore. The public transportation system was a labyrinth of buses, subways, and trains. On my first day, I took the subway, a daunting task for anyone unfamiliar with the complex routes. As I stood on the platform, watching the train speed past, an inexplicable knot formed in my stomach. Sweat bead down my forehead, mixing with the cool breeze blowing through the station, reminding me that I was completely alone in this vast, bustling place. But there was no turning back. I boarded the train, clutching the metal pole as the vehicle thundered down the tracks. In those cramped quarters filled with strangers, I felt an odd sense of camaraderie. We were all part of this daily grind, each absorbed in our own worlds, yet sharing the same journey. I noticed a young woman sitting across from me, her eyes focused on a well-worn book. It struck me as both comforting and poignant. She, like me, sought solace in her own little universe amid the chaos. But as the train jolted suddenly, I lost my balance and stumbled, my backpack slipping off my shoulder and spilling its contents onto the floor. The book tumbled out of her hands too, landing open as a gust of wind flipped the pages. I could feel the heat rushing to my cheeks. The embarrassment mingled with frustration. A dozen eyes bore into me as I scrambled to pick up my things. Just as I thought I'd sunk into the depths of mortification, the woman laughed lightly, helping me gather my scattered belongings. "It happens to the best of us," she said, her smile disarming. We struck up a brief conversation, and just like that, I had made my first friend in this city. As the days turned into weeks, my social circle began to widen. Each new interaction brought fresh challenges and, at times, the sting of rejection. Some people were warm and welcoming, while others were cold, lost in their own lives and struggles. I often found myself at coffee shops or local parks, my heart racing at the possibility of meeting new faces or keenly aware of the void that loneliness can create. Yet, with every friendship blossomed, new barriers emerged. I faced the anxiety of asking people to hang out, fearing they would turn away. I came across thick-skinned groups, often feeling like an outsider peeking into a world I couldn't quite grasp. There were moments where the weight of uncertainty pushed me to the brink, making me question whether my efforts were worth it. I had considered retreating back into solitude several times, allowing my fears to weave a narrative of defeat. One evening, I found myself at a small art gallery opening. Art had always been a passion and a refuge for me, and I thought it might be the perfect backdrop to find potential friends who shared similar interests. Yet, as I stood alone, sipping my drink and feeling the cool, crisp air swirl around me, a sense of isolation crept in. My inner critic blared loudly, amplifying my doubts. Just as I began to feel the urge to leave, something caught my eye, a vivid painting of a stormy sea, its intensity resonating with my emotions. Suddenly, I was not aware of the crowd anymore. The painting called to me, and before long, a stranger approached to share his thoughts on it. We ended up engaging in a deep conversation about art, life, and everything in between. It was thrilling, a reminder of how art could connect us in ways I never expected. From that encounter, friendships began to unfold, each one unique yet threaded with shared passions. Still, the city tested me in unexpected ways. One night, while returning home late, I encountered a situation that sent a chill down my spine. A group of unruly individuals crossed my path, their boisterous laughter quickly turning to menacing tones. Adrenaline surged as my heart raced. A conflict arose within me, torn between wanting to be bold and wanting to retreat. I remembered the lessons I had learned, the importance of standing my ground, yet fear clawed at the edges of my resolve. Just then, a familiar face from one of my new friends stepped into view, my heart lifting at the sight of her. She walked confidently towards me, her presence radiating strength. With a few engaging words and a bright smile, She diffused the tension in the air, turning the threat into casual banter. I realized then just how important it was to cultivate friendships. They were not just companionships, but shields in the unpredictable wilderness of life. As the weeks continued to unfold, I found that the challenges I faced were often accompanied by unexpected glimpses of hope. It was often in moments of vulnerability that I discovered the true essence of friendship. Those laughter-filled encounters at cafes, the late-night discussions over cups of tea, and the shared silence in comfortable company taught me that not every struggle was meant to be waged alone. Every new friend became part of the new fabric of my life, and the city, once an anonymous giant, transformed into a kaleidoscope of faces and stories. It was a timeless dance of joy and sorrow, victories and defeats. I learned that it was okay to feel out of place sometimes, that it was okay to struggle, but also that the city had a way of nurturing resilience and hope amidst chaos. Now, as I reflect on those initial days filled with uncertainty, I realize that they were pivotal in sculpting my journey. The balance between isolation and connection, the external pressures, and my internal conflicts forged an experience of growth that was both beautiful and tumultuous. Life in the city was still a challenge, but with each passing day, I grew more equipped to face it. Leaning on the friendships I had formed, and embracing the unpredictability that lay ahead. It was a humid afternoon in Jakarta when I first stepped off the plane, the overwhelming smell of spices and street food swirling around me. I had always dreamed of visiting Indonesia, but somehow, this trip felt different. The vibrant chaos of the city engulfed me, from the honking motorbikes that weave through traffic to the colorful market stalls overflowing with fresh fruits and handmade crafts. I was there for an adventure, but little did I know how this journey would transform my perspective on life. As I explored Jakarta, I found a local cafe that served the best kopi tubruk, a traditional Indonesian coffee. I struck up a conversation with a local named Ronnie, who told me about the city's history and culture. She had studied anthropology and was passionate about sharing the tales of her homeland. We talked for hours about everything from the struggles of urban life to the beauty of the countryside. Ronnie invited me to join her for a weekend trip to Bali, where she promised I would experience the real essence of Indonesia. Without much thought, I agreed. The next day, we boarded a flight to Denpasar, Bali. The change in atmosphere was instantaneous. The moment we landed, the air was filled with a sweet, floral scent, and I could see the lush greenery stretching towards the horizon. As we drove to Ubud, the artistic heart of Bali, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The landscape was dotted with rice paddies, vibrant temples, and art boutiques lined the streets. Ronnie took me to a traditional Balinese dance performance one evening. The music was mesmerizing, and the dancers, adorned in intricate costumes, told stories of gods and heroes through their movements. It was enchanting, but what struck me the most was the sense of community. Locals gathered to enjoy the performance together, sharing laughter and excitement. This intermingling of lives and culture resonated with something deep within me. The next day, we hiked up to Mount Batur to watch the sunrise. It was a grueling trek, the rocky path challenging even the most seasoned climbers. But when we reached the summit, the view was breathtaking. The sun peaked over the horizon, casting a golden hue over the volcanic crater and shimmering lake below. In that moment, I was struck with clarity. Life was not merely about achievements or destinations, but about the journey and the connections we make along the way. Back in Ubud, Ronnie took me to an orphanage where she volunteered. The children were full of joy and laughter, despite their challenging circumstances. I spent the afternoon playing games with them, teaching them some English phrases and listening to their stories. Their resilience and spirit made me reflect on my own life and the privileges I often took for granted. I felt a desire to contribute, to give back in any way I could. As the days passed, I became more enveloped in Bali's beauty and the warmth of its people. I joined Ronnie on meditation retreats, practiced yoga in serene landscapes, and learned traditional cooking. Each experience enriched my understanding of life's simple pleasures and the importance of mindfulness. On the day of my departure, I sat in the cafe where Ronnie and I had first met. I was filled with a bittersweet longing, excited to share what I had learned with friends back home, yet hesitant to leave this new sense of self behind. Ronnie gifted me a small silver pendant shaped like a lotus flower, symbolizing purity, enlightenment, and rebirth. She encouraged me to carry it as a reminder of my experiences in Indonesia. As I boarded the flight back to Jakarta for my journey home, I felt a blend of nostalgia and hope. The moments I had shared, the lessons I had learned, and the people I had met would stay with me forever. Upon returning home, I found myself restless, yearning for more adventure. One evening, while scrolling through travel blogs, I stumbled upon an article about the ancient ruins of Machu Picchu in Peru. The breathtaking images stirred something in me. I had never considered South America before. Before I could think twice, I clicked book and secured my next journey. I could already feel the excitement bubbling inside me. Another adventure was calling, waiting to challenge me, to change me once again. With my lotus pendant resting against my heart, I smiled, knowing that the world was vast and my journey was far from over. Thanks for joining this adventure. If you enjoyed the journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing travels. Where are we heading next? Stay tuned to find out. See you in the next adventure.